You have less friends than you think. Not because people hate you, not because you're unapproachable, not because you're weird, not because you're unlikable, but because you've been mislabeling strangers. That's all. And today we're going to fix that. This is not to make you paranoid, it's just to give you clarity. Once you get honest about your connections, everything gets lighter. There is more peace. There is no overthinking. It's calm. Hi beautiful people, and welcome back to another video. My name is Ruth Chiji. If you're new here, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm so excited to make this video, if you cannot tell. Now, my previous video, or the previous one before the previous one, titled I'm Too Lazy to Make Friends, I talked about how I'm going to be making this video today and I'll be clarifying or emphasizing certain points. Now, if you have not yet watched that video, please go watch it. It's going to give you some insight. You don't need to watch it to understand this one. These are two different topics, but I suggest you watch it. I think you're probably going to learn something, I guess. All right, let's get into today's topic. So before we start talking about, you have less friends than you think, or before we start talking about friendship and all these things, I need you guys to, just do a little exercise. Now, for those of you that journal and meditate and sit with your thoughts, this is probably common ground for you. For the rest of you that don't like listening to your thoughts and don't like sitting in just still silence, you're going to find this weird, but it's going to be helpful and it's probably not that deep. But what I want you guys to do before you even get further into this video, if you haven't done it already, is sit down with yourself with a book and pen, paper, pen, whatever it is. Preferably try and write it down. And you're going to ask yourself, who is a friend to you? What does friendship mean to you? What can you offer and what do you offer in friendships? What do you expect from friendships? And this needs to be very personalized and be real with yourself. And just from that exercise, if you're being very real with yourself, you will already see that, the list is getting smaller. The list of friends is getting smaller. The list of acquaintances is getting smaller. Because what I have realized is people have different definitions of friendships, right? Just like how people have different definitions of, what a relationship is, and should we do 50-50? Should we do, 100 and should he do 100%? Should we do 80-20? Whatever it is. You want to know what exactly friendship means to you before you start making friends, right? Or before you start making new friendships, especially as an adult, because I'm guessing I'm speaking to adults or even just teenagers. It's fine. Because when you have that definition, you have a standard. And when you have a standard, you don't go below that standard. What does that mean? You don't start mislabeling people. You don't start just throwing the label around, if you get what I mean. So once you've done that exercise, you should have more clarity, or just a bit more clarity, and then we can now get into the video. We need to bring back the word acquaintance. Seriously, just because you know someone doesn't mean they're your friend. Just because you've had lunch with someone twice doesn't mean you guys are close. That's just called being polite or even being bored. Let's normalize the middle ground. That's a coffee buddy. That's a workmate. That's a church member. That's, a gym head nod and then you move on kind of situation. Like whenever I see you, it's just like, oh, hey, what's up? I wouldn't even have the small talk. That's still okay. Not everyone needs to be elevated to the friend status, because we're out here handing out friendship titles like free samples and then wondering why we're disappointed later. Friends aren't co-stars. They don't do a cameo in your life. They don't just come for an episode and then they're out for the rest of the 5 seasons. No, they're full cast members. They're there throughout, seasons out, seasons in. They're always there. And next to acquaintances, we also need to normalize people just saying, oh, I know that person. I know them. So I know their name. I know a few things about them, but I don't know them well enough to call them an acquaintance. Because now this is the thing with mislabeling anything. In this case, friendships. When you mislabel friendships, or when you mislabel people and then you call them a friend, that probably should have been an acquaintance. You're now mislabeling the acquaintance that probably should have been someone that you know. And then you're now mislabeling the stranger that should have been, and then you're now mislabeling the person that you just know that should have been a stranger. It's a cycle. It's a sequence. It's a food chain. So you need to make sure that you're getting it right from the very beginning. So next, let's talk about social connection and soul connection. Now, soul connection is we talk, we laugh, we hang, we vibe, we have a few things in common. Okay? Soul connection is you see me, you know what I'm saying without me having to say it. Okay? You hear the shift in my tone and you check in without needing a reason. There is concern, there is emotional attachment involved. And I think that's the big difference between a soul and a social connection. A social connection is, even if that person was to live your life, even if that person was to live your life for like 2 years, however long it might be, you're not going to be affected because you never related deeply with them. There was no depth. And we have confused being socially connected with being deeply connected. And that's why a lot of us are surrounded by people but still feel lonely. There is no way you can look me in my eyes and tell me you have 20 friends and you still feel lonely. Something is wrong, babe. Something is wrong. You need to check your circle. You need to check the 20 friends you're calling friends. Somebody can have one friend and they will never feel lonely. Two friends and they will never feel lonely. But you have 20 friends and you're telling me you still feel lonely. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, warning signs. I'm ringing the bells. So your friends should be the friends that you cry with, the friends that you laugh with, the friends that you go to coffee with, the friends that you do this with, the friends that you do everything with. They should be your everything friends, not just, oh, drinks on a Friday. We go to church on Sundays. And that being said, I don't mean you need to do everything together, because I do know that there are some friends that don't like doing some things that you enjoy. You know, I don't really like walking outside. My friend might like walking outside. I'm not necessarily going to do that with her every time she wants to do it. So it's not wrong for her to now have a walk buddy, someone that she goes on walks with. That's fine. But the issue is you now labeling people that you do things occasionally with, you now labeling them as friends because you do things with them occasionally. No, that's not a friend. And a lot of the times, people that have these kinds of like, friendships, you hear them say things like, that's a walk, that's a work friend, sorry, that's a church friend. Guys, imagine me thinking that we are good friends and then you're out here calling me a church friend. Like, what does that mean? Labeling your friendships by the place, by where you met them or where you meet them is crazy. Like, imagine calling, like, maybe the best friend that you met at school. Imagine calling them, oh, that's my school friend. Would you do that? So why are you doing that for people that you go to work with just because you vibe with them? That you go to church with that just because you vibe with them? No. You just meet them there, you vibe with them, and that's what it is. Just because you see someone all the time, so at school, at work, at the gym, wherever it is, that doesn't mean you're close. That's just convenience. Proximity is not the same as intimacy. If someone disappears and your life feels no different, that wasn't a friend. I remember when I was in high school, I remember one of my classmates, or friends actually, she was like, you really learn who your friends are when you leave school. Or I think it was actually after COVID had happened or during COVID. And it was like, wow, like you realize that you stopped talking to a lot of people because you were no longer in the same space with them. So that just goes to show that sometimes it's just proximity. And that's okay. And I've been there as well. Like there are times I've mislabeled, I've been so quick to, label someone as a friend because every time we were always at church, we were serving in the same department, we were doing this and doing that together. And I was like, oh my God, I think we're friends. No, you vibe, you're cool, and you just are in this space for this amount of time, these number of days. And that's what it is. That's all it is. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do stuff with people from school, work, or church, the gym, wherever. Like, yes, go to the brunch, go for the hike, share the playlist, go for whatever it is you want to go for. But the thing is, don't be slapping the word friend on someone just because you've been in the same room for 8 hours every day. If you don't relate to them, if you haven't actually connected beyond shared tasks or jokes about your boss, the people in your environment, maybe you should hold off on that label. Because labels come with expectations. And when you label someone as a friend, before there's a real connection, you might start crossing your own boundaries. So you start oversharing, you start overgiving, you start overextending, and then you now start wondering why you feel weird after, why it's not mutual. Because to them, they were just seeing you as a work buddy, someone that they like, you know, but they were not seeing you as a friend. And you were over here, over investing in this friendship, and it was just simply a social connection. It's not about being cold, it's about being clear. So if you want to build a friendship, with the work buddy, the gym buddy, the church member, that's cool. Be intentional about it. Put in the effort, learn them, let them learn you, but don't rush the title just because you vibe and you're usually in each other's spaces. Maybe you're ready to form a friendship with them. Maybe you're not. Either way, I'm just saying be honest with yourself. You don't have to friend or befriend everyone you vibe with. Some people are just good vibes, and that's enough. One of the easiest ways to find out if someone is actually your friend or just a convenient emotional sponge is to check the balance. Who is checking on who? Outside of you, posting something sad on your story or mentioning that you're tired, who remembers what you're going through and asks about it? When something good happens to you, who is genuinely excited? When something bad happens, who shows up, not just with words, but with support? If you find that you're always the one initiating, always sending the first text, always making the plans, always being the listener, you might not be in a friendship, you might be in an unpaid support role. You might be doing, what do they call it? Is it therapy? Those things are like a caregiver or whatever. Babe, it's not a friendship. And no, it won't always be 50-50 all the time, but it should balance out over time. So if you're giving 90 and you're getting 10, that's not a friend. That's emotional labor with no return, no investment. Call the bank. And I know it can be uncomfortable to admit that someone you care about doesn't care about you in the same way. But that's why this video is called You Have Less Friends Than You Think. Because friendship is more than who you're cool with. It's who is consistent, who is neutral, who is invested. And if they're not, maybe stop pouring. People don't talk a lot about friendships that end without a fight. So there was no big fallout, no drama, it was just silence. And then one day you realize it's been months, maybe years, and you haven't spoken. Not even a check-in. It's not that you're beefing, it's just gone. And here's the thing, if someone fell off your radar and you didn't even notice until you scrolled past their name in your contacts, that's not a friendship you lost. That's a ghost friendship. It was already dead. You just hadn't buried it yet. You just hadn't buried it. And I think we hold on to almost all friendships out of nostalgia, habit, or even guilt. But if the only thing keeping that bond alive is memory and not mutual effort, it's time to tell yourself the truth, babe. Sometimes, life moves on. Life just moves on. People outgrow each other. Proximity changes. Priorities shift. And that's normal. What's not normal is pretending that silence equals closeness. It doesn't. And sometimes you're keeping people in your emotional circle just because there was once a vibe. But if you're the only one doing the remembering, the only one still holding the door open, you're not in a friendship. So yeah, you have less friends than you think, but it's not always sad. Sometimes it's just honest. It's freeing. It lets you make space for the people who are actually present. So let's talk about this idea that having fewer friends is somehow a bad thing. It's not. In fact, less is more. More clarity, more peace, more time, more energy for the people who actually pour into you, not just hoover around you. Having 2 or 3 real friends that see you through anything, that's better than having 20, oh my God, that's crazy, that's amazing type of friends. That's just surface level acquaintances. You don't need a group chat full of people to feel valued. You need people who make you feel seen even when you're not performing. So yeah, it might look like your circle is shrinking, but what's really happening is it's refining. The people who are still there, they're not here out of convenience, they're here on purpose, and that's real. And honestly, it's better to know who isn't for you than to keep faking it just to say that you're booked and busy with friends. No, thank you. So yeah, you might have less friends than you thought, but now you can be real about who is who. Now you can be very clear and intentional about your boundaries. And that kind of honesty, it's not petty, it's self-respect. Thank you guys so much for watching, and share this with your actual friends. Oh, I play too much. Anyway, share this with your friends, share this with anyone that you feel like needs to hear this or needs to be reminded, because sometimes we do know these things, but we forget them. So share this with people, share this with anyone that you feel like needs to hear this, and I'll catch you guys in my next video, and have an amazing time. Bye.